You should always be learning and growing, and you can learn from other people.
Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast, a weekly podcast providing career and creative inspiration to help you build a purpose-filled life. If you're interested in tapping into your creative potential, pursuing a career with passion, and building on your biggest and best resource, yourself, please join me on this path. I'm your host, Nancy Moore, and I want you to know that I'm on this journey with you. So let's get started. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to thank my sponsor, Dr. Jacqueline Duvall, the OK Headache Doctor. Dr. Duvall is a Mayo Clinic trained neurologist who is certified in headache medicine and runs Headache Specialists of Oklahoma here in Tulsa. If you suffer from headaches or migraines, you're not alone. Migraine affects 1 billion people worldwide. In fact, migraine is the #1 cause of disability in women ages 15 to 55. So if you'd like to learn more about migraine or find out how you can effectively manage migraine with a specialist, schedule a visit with Dr. Duvall's office. To learn more or schedule a visit, check out hsoo.org. There's a well-known phrase, bloom where you are planted. And there are many ways this phrase is applicable to my conversation with Dr. Erica Kumar. For starters, she has done exactly that. During this visit, you'll hear how she embraced her opportunities and created a life that she loves with her family in Tulsa, Oklahoma. You'll also learn about her involvement in philanthropy, including serving as a co-chair with her husband, Neel, for the Stacked Deck Fundraiser in September, and I'm actually serving on that committee as well. She shares more about resonance, which is associated with Stacked Deck, and that's what the money from Stacked Deck goes towards. So she'll share more about what resonance is and who benefits from that fundraiser. And then she also gives some excellent advice for anyone at any stage. So I hope that you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Erica Kumar. Okay, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Erica Kumar.
Thank you.
I am so happy to have you with me. I admire you on so many different levels. We're sorority sisters. Now we're serving on a committee together that you are chairing, you and Neel. And we'll get to that later, but I would just love people to get to know you a little better. So if you could kind of share your background and what brought you to Oklahoma, because you're not from Oklahoma.
Right, yeah. Originally I'm from San Diego. So my dad was in the Navy. He was a radiologist and did medical school through the Navy, so he was out there. So that's where I was born, and we left when I was about 8 and moved to Dothan, Alabama. So he got out of the military, and that's where we settled, and that's where I went to high school and then college at University of South Alabama, and I stayed there for medical school. So after that amount of time in Alabama, I was ready to move along. So I did my residency at UT Houston, and I was there able to rotate at MD Anderson and a couple of the other local hospitals there. And that was great because that med center in Houston is just amazing, and you get exposed to a lot of really well-known pathologists. That's what my specialty is. And then I trained in New York, so we were in New York for a year, and then the world was our oyster, and there weren't as many job openings in my subspecialty at the time. And I had one of the ladies I trained with was friends with the guy I work for, and she said, what about Tulsa, Oklahoma? And I thought, I'll come and do a practice interview, and I don't want to live in Oklahoma after I spent 20 years in Alabama. But I got here, and it was like, people are so nice, and it was such a fun city. And even when we came like 10 years ago, there was still like cool food and stuff downtown, and it's just like grown so much. But we've really enjoyed it. The cost of living is great. The weather's fairly mild, and we've just enjoyed it. It kind of has everything we need, and if it doesn't, then we just take our time and travel wherever we want to go. So we've really enjoyed being here.
Yeah, you travel to a lot of cool places, which I'm going to ask you about later. I know, I love that. So you went into pathology. And so what took you specifically into that area out of all of the
everything.
Yeah.
I had actually been sort of interested in forensics, and that was basically from watching shows on Discovery Channel more about CSI type investigators. And so when I got into med school, I realized that the medical examiner forensics, pathology-wise, isn't quite like that. Then I kind of shifted my interest to dermatology. That was something else I was very interested in. And I had a mentor during a summer research project that said, oh, you could do derm path. That's like a thing where you look at skin biopsies. And I didn't even know that was a thing. So that really opened up that path. And I said, yeah, I think I'm going to do this. So that was really great that I had that mentor kind of share that idea with me.
That's so cool. I'm glad you mentioned that because I always encourage people to find a mentor.
Yeah.
I mean, even at my stage, I have a mentor. It's just good to have a different perspective from somebody who has a little more experience because you do learn different things and that you maybe wouldn't have known or wouldn't have considered. So I'm glad that you shared that.
100%. Yeah, I think people don't realize, even shifting to a new line of work under your line of work or something, it's always something new. You should always be learning and growing, and you can learn from other people, and it doesn't have to be somebody that's older than you or whatever. I think it's just great to be able to hear other people's perspectives, like you said, and then learn from other people's mistakes. So.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So when you're going to work, because you're at work probably more than you're with your family, when they go to work. Yeah. So what do you enjoy? Because I know that you love doing what you're doing. So what do you enjoy about your work?
So I do mostly skin pathology. I do some neuropath too. So that would be like looking at brain biopsies. And I like it because, you're looking for an answer. And most of the time, medicine in general isn't always black and white. There's sometimes a gray area. But most of the time, especially when you're looking at a biopsy, you're giving like 100% positive answer. And so it's great to be able to provide to the clinician and then to the patient, yes, this is what you have. This is the diagnosis. And so I like just going through and the skin biopsies are usually small, like it's one slide or a few slides, and that's just something quick and I move on to the next thing. So it's almost like like a fast answer type of thing. And I listen to podcasts while I look at my slides or music or whatever. So I just sit at my desk in my own little office and I look and make my diagnoses, and I'm in my own little world listening. And I mean, we talk to each other and show each other cases and things. And sometimes there are difficult cases and it's almost like a little detective puzzle. You have to do what we call immunostains or special tests to figure out what things are sometimes. Sometimes you can't tell by just looking at the slide. And so that's kind of fun. It's a little bit of a challenge or a puzzle, and I like that as well. And it's a very visual field. So it's a lot of pattern recognition, which I like. And I did art history as an undergrad, so I feel like I'm very like visual and art oriented, and I feel like that sort of translated to pathology, where you're recognizing patterns and putting it in a diagnosis category.
That's cool how you can relate art history to what you're doing currently too.
And there's really a lot of similarities. Like you can look at some of the strokes or patterns of like a painting and say, oh, that's a Monet or whatever. It's easy to recognize certain patterns in different paintings, and it's kind of the same in pathology. You're like, oh, well, this is the pattern that you'd see in this kind of tumor. So there is a lot of overlap.
That's neat. Yeah, very cool. Okay, so you were recognized as a top 40 under 40.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool. In fact, I was just flipping through the magazine and I happened to see it and I thought, oh my gosh, I think I texted you and said, I'm so happy or so proud of you. But anyway, tell us about that.
So my husband, Neel, actually nominated me for that, which I thought was so sweet. I didn't know that was
He is so awesome.
He's such a thoughtful person.
Yeah.
And just, very... very proud of people, and when he's very proud or impressed with you, he lets you know, and that was such a sweet thing for him to do.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Very cool. So everybody only has so much time, and I do feel like you maximize yours because I know just a little bit of what you do, and it's unbelievable. So I know that there's a whole other, you do a lot of other things. So if you kind of share with people a little insight on how you get things done, maybe how you prioritize things to get all of what you're doing done.
Yeah, I mean, so Neel and I obviously go through like a shared calendar, and so I try a lot of my things that I have scheduled are like sort of flexible. So I teach karate, and that ends up being there's 4 of us that teach, so I end up doing that like 2 evenings a month. So that's kind of one of those things I go through with Neel at the beginning of every month. I say what Wednesday or Monday would work for you, and so I try to schedule that around him, and we trade if possible. We have a good group of sitters that we use, so it really does take a village. That's like a huge part of it. And, really it's just trying to, like you said, prioritize what's important. What do I need to do, or what can I put off? And so lately I've missed some of the fun social events that I have through like Junior League or the CAIO alumni, just because we've been so busy with kind of work-related stuff. And Neel's been busy too. We've both taken on some leadership positions in our work, and so we've got meetings for that, and those always last a long time. So it really is just about scheduling things with each other, and then scheduling with all of our sitters and aftercare programs and things like that. So I'm sure that's going to become more interesting as the kids get older and get more homework, but we'll figure it out when the time comes.
Yeah, no need to worry about that now, for sure. That's funny. Okay, so I mentioned that I teach at Tulsa Community College, right. And I would love to know at your stage, like 40-ish, what advice you would give to your 20-year-old self or 20-ish-year-old self.
My literal advice would have been to invest in Amazon, because I actually wanted to. I remember buying my books at the bookstore and then kind of switching over to buying them from Amazon, and I thought, this is amazing. Everybody's going to be buying their books from Amazon. Like, I should invest in this. And I really almost asked my dad to take like some money out of my account, and I didn't trust my gut. So I would say, trust your gut, because I could have been, I don't know, sitting on a yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean right now.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
But trust your gut. I mean, I think that a lot of people question themselves, and I think from a safety standpoint too. I listen to a lot of true crime. That's one of my podcast genres I like to listen to, and I think people, they feel something in their gut that isn't quite right, and then looking back, it's like there's a reason you feel like that. So trust your gut. If you feel uncomfortable in a situation, get out of it. Trusting your gut in different situations would definitely be a word of advice. Like, have confidence in what your gut is telling you. And then the other piece of advice would be, you're never stuck where you are. I think it's easy for people to feel like, I'm 40, I'm in this job, I can't do anything. You can always get out. I mean, there's so many inspirational stories, and you've interviewed a ton of people with stories like that. So pivot and make a change and figure out how can you get out of this? Because you're never stuck 100% in where you are. And this comes up a lot with, I mentioned to you earlier, I'm in a few Facebook groups for physician women, and I feel like that becomes a huge thing, especially if you are the main breadwinner in your house. You're like, there's so many women that end up getting burned out for one reason or another, and I think part of it's just the nature of healthcare in general right now. And I feel like people feel like they can't do anything about it, but there's plenty of women in this group that have branched out and done different things. One of them does a full-time podcast. Some of them do consulting for other women physicians to help them find other areas of interest. So there's always like something else that you can do, and I feel like physicians feeling stuck in their job is kind of not uncommon, because you feel like you've put all this effort, you've spent years of your life training, you've spent all this money. Mm-hmm. A lot of them have debt that they're still paying off from student loans. So you do feel like you're stuck, but you can figure it out. So somebody's done it before you, and that's the key in finding a mentor too,
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah. Okay, so before we move on, because I want to talk about Stacked Deck, this month was Mother's Day, and so I would love to hear, you have the 2 most precious kids.
Oh, thank you.
I'd love to hear what you guys did to celebrate Mother's Day.
Well, we went to church, and then we ran over to brunch with some of our friends at Oren. I think we've done that like 3 or 4 years now, so that's kind of become our little spot. Just really great little brunch place. And then in the afternoon, we went swimming, and my son and my daughter, I guess, love water balloons. And so I just pelted them with water balloons wings, and then I cooked dinner.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And you cooked dinner? Okay.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? So I was talking to somebody this morning and she was saying, we got takeout, so I didn't have to cook, but I know you love to cook.
I do. Yeah. And normally.
And you're good at it. So.
We've eaten out so much this week, and I had a lot of stuff I needed to cook before it went bad. So.
So there you
But I did fried chicken wings in the air fryer. And like a veggie pasta. So
it
was good.
Yeah, that sounds very good. Okay, so I want to move on to Stacked Deck because I am new to that organization and this, and so I thought who better to kind of talk about that than you, and your heart for it. So there's a fundraiser coming up, but I wanted you to kind of explain about what Stacked Deck is, who it benefits, a little more about that.
Yeah. So Stacked Deck is the name of the fundraiser for Resident Center for Women. And Resident Center for Women, basically what they do is they help women who are involved in the justice system. So many times that means women who have drug or alcohol dependence issues, and that has either landed them in prison or there's alternatives that residents helps provides that can keep them out of prison, like if it's their first offense or whatever. And this was an organization that I was introduced to through Junior League. And one of the Junior League meetings had the lady Ellen who had started Poetic Justice. And they had her kind of talk about poetic justice and how they go into prisons and they work with some of the inmates to do kind of like poetry and therapy and arts and therapy. And Resonance was another program that Junior League had where you could meet with some of the ladies that were in the Take Two program, which is one of the many programs that they run. And that specific program is women who, most of them are people who have done their time and been released from prison. And it's kind of like a program they do for like 6 months where they work in the Take Two restaurant, which is on the downstairs level of the building, and then they live upstairs in an apartment together, and they all have therapy requirements and all these requirements they have to meet before they graduate. And so they're doing this Take Two program to learn kind of not just how to cook. I mean, it's not directed specifically towards like the restaurant industry. It's kind of getting them back integrated into society, giving them some skills, whether that might be managerial skills, cooking and restaurant skills, but also just kind of the skills to get back into normal life. So it's getting these women some support, both mentally and like in a rehab type of way, putting them in a sober living type situation and really helping them out. And so Junior League's role was to meet with the ladies every other week, and we would take them dinner and do like a different craft or something, just do something with them to get them back into feeling like, okay, I'm integrating back into society, somebody cares, is giving their time, that kind of thing. So I slowly started learning more and more about what Resonance did, and they run several different programs that basically helps that mission of helping women to get that support they need once they've been involved in the justice system. And it's mostly for drug and alcohol related issues, and they help them get the mental health they need, the rehabilitation type help they need. They also provide re-entry services, so everyone has case manager, but they help them, go through all their things. Maybe they've lost their license since they've been in prison, or they had DUI, so they lost their license, whatever it is. Maybe they don't have their birth certificate or social security card. So Resonance provides a case manager to sit down with them, help them get every little thing back that they need to get their life back together, get a job, get an apartment, that kind of thing. And it really is like a lot of stuff. I mean, it's just stuff that we don't think about having to do because we've never presumably been in that situation. So having these case managers really help them through step by step, and also make sure that they're, doing well, like in their personal lives and everything. It really is so helpful for them. And I mean, they're showing up and picking them up from prison when they're released. I mean, it really is step to step till they're on their own feet and can get out in the world and do stuff. And they're always welcome to come back. There's clients that maybe have been out for a year and they'll come back and say, hey, I think I need a little extra therapy or whatever, and Resonance will help them. And I think, when you look at Oklahoma having like the highest incarceration rate in the country, for a while we were number one. I think now we're maybe like 2 or 3, but we have the highest female incarceration rate in the United States and probably the world, because I think the U.S. has highest incarceration rates out of anyone anyway. I feel like we do need to support the system a little bit. And a lot of these women are, single moms, or they don't have like any family support. A lot of them have a history of abuse, and they just kind of like never had a chance. And I feel like after we became parents, we kind of realized like, wow, we've had such a good support system growing up. We've never really been on our own, and we had such a great support system helping us with our kids. And these ladies just, most of them don't have that. I was talking to one woman who told me that she started using drugs when she was 13 because her mom was abusing drugs. I mean, what chance did she have? Obviously, that's the path she's going to take. If you don't have anyone at home supporting you otherwise, that's just the natural path. So this organization really does, I feel, break that cycle of drug dependence. And these women who complete the programs have such a low recidivism rate. Almost none of them relapse and go back. And so I feel like those numbers really show how effective the program is.
Yeah, I can hear your heart for that.
Yeah.
Because I know you're involved in a lot of different things, and you and Neel are so philanthropic. But this, for you both to chair this committee, that said a lot about this organization,
Right.
and this to you and your heart. And so anyway, now I kind of know a little bit more about that, from your perspective.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think there's so many great organizations in Tulsa, and it is such a philanthropic place. And I think there's a lot of people that set such great examples, and it's like such an honor to be included in that and kind of keep that ball rolling and keep Tulsa such a caring city.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah, we're very blessed to have so many people that are so philanthropic, and especially some great organizations, that step in and help. And so, because I know it's needed. So if you could kind of explain too how other people who are hearing this may be able to get involved, whether, I guess I'll let you explain.
I think there's definitely different opportunities for direct volunteering with the organization. We have groups that come and help. We have a couple of sober living houses, and then our main headquarters, and there's different organizations that'll come out on a Saturday and help do some gardening or repairs or whatever. And then there's also groups that will come do dinner with the ladies in the different sober living houses a couple times a week. They're busy too, because a lot of them are working like kind of full-time jobs, and they work unusual hours depending on their specific job. But that's one way. Also, if you're an employer that would be interested in becoming a second chance employer, so there's a couple of organizations we partner with, like BAMA companies and Aon, that a lot of these women will funnel to, and they're such hard workers because they really have gotten a new lease on life and are very appreciative of that second chance. And so they're the types that'll work their buns off. They show up and they work hard, and they're not afraid of manual labor. So it's not for every organization, but if you're an organization that would be interested in second chance employer partnership, that's one way that an organization could help. And then just coming to Stacked Deck. Stacked Deck is usually held in the fall, so we try to steer away from all the spring galas, but it's usually a super fun party. It's not black tie or anything. It's usually like somewhere in between casual and cocktail. This year it's going to be a Mardi Gras parade theme, so it'll be super fun, and the food's going to be amazing. Cox does such a good job with specialty food, so we're going to definitely have some New Orleans inspired food. But we have sponsorships available. You can buy tables and tickets, and we're in a bigger room this year, so hopefully we'll fill it up, and that'll be a great way to be involved.
Yeah. And
probably the most fun way.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, and I'll put that information, so if people want to find out more about Stacked Deck or, contact
for sure.
you through that, then they can do that too. So, okay, so I appreciate your time talking about all that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think is so cool about you and Neel, so you guys traveled a lot before you had kids. Well, then you had kids, and then you started traveling a lot.
Yes.
I mean, you've really never
stopped.
stopped. And so anyway, I wanted you to talk about that in, maybe some places you've gone, or a favorite place you've gone, and what you enjoy so much about travel.
Yeah, I think we both just love seeing different cultures and seeing different things and seeing the world. And I think one of the things you asked me to think about was, where's the most fun place we've been? And I was like, well, gosh, this was fun, that was fun. So it's hard to really pick one. I loved Morocco just because that had such an interesting change in scenery in the different cities we went to. You've got like the markets and all the beautiful architecture, and we went through the Atlas Mountains and went to the Sahara Desert, and then we'd go back to different cities. So we really saw just a ton of different climates and cities there, and the food was really good. I mean, it was just such a great place and such an exotic feeling place to travel. That was awesome. But we've really just enjoyed going all kinds of places. We got back from the Maldives recently, and we did a lot of snorkeling and scuba diving with that. The plane trip was great. Neel is very big into points, so we ended up booking some really nice flights for that. And then traveling with kids, I feel like, people are so intimidated by that. And really, if you do it from a young age, and especially with babies, I mean, they're sleeping all the time, so it's even a better way to do it. I think that like 1 to 2 year old phase is a little hard because they don't have the attention span to be entertained by like a TV show or a game for very long, so that is a little bit of a challenge. But I think if you go into it with like low expectations, you'll be fine. But some advice on that is just pack extra clothes for everybody in case there's a blowout or some kind of accident, and then packing a ton of snacks and just little easy things for the kids to play with. So
good advice. Yeah. Because you make it look easy. I mean, but I'm seeing, of course, good parts, the good parts.
Yeah, but there's always going to be like some tears and frustration or whatever, but then you get to the place and, maybe there's more tears and frustration, but you only remember the good parts.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's so important to have kids go and see other people and other cultures. And
sure.
Yeah.
And they'll remember some of it. I mean, some of it they won't. Elle is just now 2.5, so I think some of the trips, she'll see the pictures, and so she'll have those like false memories from the pictures, I guess. But Kai starts remembering little things, and it's funny the stuff they remember. We went to England last summer, and we asked him what his favorite thing was, and it was the minibus that we rode on. So, we could have just done that here, but
yeah.
They enjoyed it. And they'll look back at pictures and remember.
Yeah.
And we had a blast, so,
Yeah. Well, I just love that you guys just take them. Like you don't miss a beat. So my theme for this year is grow more in 2024.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm wondering how you have grown or how you're growing personally or professionally.
I've really been big this year into making sure I don't put off for tomorrow what I can do today. And that's such an old one. And my mom always used to be really big on that, like just go ahead and get it over with. But I've really started doing that more at work. And I wasn't a procrastinator anyway, but there's always like little things that I could get done. And I've been so appreciative. Like you just never know what kind of hot mess is going to show up the next day, and that's really been the theme this year for me at work. So I'm glad that I've been doing things when I have a little extra time to do them, and that helps with the time management issue as well. It's always good to just like push through, get whatever it is over with, so tomorrow you have more room on your plate for something else. So
good advice. Really good advice. Okay. Well, I have enjoyed visiting with you.
Oh, me too. Thank you.
It's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to working with you on this committee. I think you're going to do great things and raise a lot of money and help some great women here in Tulsa on Stacked Deck. So
yeah, I can't wait. Hopefully we can get all the seats filled. And if your listeners are curious, it's September 28th at the Cox Business Center. So we'll have a website for you at some point.
Okay, and I can link it through my website too. Well, thanks for talking to me.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap on this week's episode. I want to thank you for listening to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. It means the world to me, and I'd love to connect with you. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter at Passion Sharing. Also, if you like this podcast, it would mean a lot to me for you to subscribe, rate, and review it. And as always, all my show notes will be available on my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com.